The angel of God said to me in the dream, Jacob, I answered, here I am. And he said, look up and see that all the male goats mating with the flock are streaked, speckled, or spotted. For I have seen all that Laban has been doing to you. I am the God of Bethel, where you anointed a pillar, and where you made a vow to me. Now leave this rod at once and go back to your native rod. Genesis 31, verse 11 to verse 13. Hearing the voice of God. Can you look at this voice of God? When God speaks, He comes to teach you life excellence strategies. He is telling him in verse 12, look up and see that all the male goat mating with the flock are streaked, speckled, or spotted. For I have seen all that Laban has been doing to you. So when the Lord spoke, and this is God speaking, because if you look at the verse 13, he says, I am the God of Bethel. And who is speaking to Jacob in verse 11? The angel of God. And then when the angel of God is defining himself, he says, I am the God of Bethel. And who was the God of Bethel? The God of Bethel was the God of Abraham and Isaac. So this angel of God is not a natural angel. This is a pre-incarnation of Jesus Christ. This is what I want us to get. When God spoke with Jacob, he showed him a dream. He showed him a vision. And he saw the mating of dogs and all that. The mating of goats and sheep and the cattle were either streaked, speckled, or spotted. And Jacob, taking that dream, he went and he told Jacob in Genesis 30, verse 32, let me go through all your flocks today and remove from them every speckled or spotted sheep, every dark colored lamb, and every spotted or speckled goat. There will be my wages. Because Laban had told Jacob, name your wages and I will pay you. When Jacob had gotten frustrated for working for this nigger called Laban without any salary, because he had shortchanged the salary of Jacob 10 times in Genesis 31 and verse 7. Yet your father has cheated me by changing my wages 10 times. So then Jacob took that and applied it in Genesis 30 verse 37. Jacob, however, took fresh cut branches from poplar, almond, and plane trees and made white stripes on them by peeling the bark and exposing the white inner wood of the branches. If you read verse 43, Genesis 30, verse 43 says, in this way the man grew exceedingly prosperous, and he came to own large flocks, and made servant and many servant, and the camels and donkeys. What does that mean? The voice of God, when the voice of God is speaking to you, that voice of God carries economic excellence techniques and strategies. Wow. Jacob was working for a boss who didn't know how to appreciate hard work. And Laban had become very rich through Jacob. That's what he says in verse Genesis 30:27. But Laban said to him, I have found, if I have found favor in your eyes, please stay. I have learned by divination that the Lord has blessed me because of you. So he said, name your wages and I will pay them. So Jacob had made this man very rich and very wealthy, but Jacob was not gaining. That's why he asked him. That's when he asked him in verse 30, Genesis 30, last part says, but now when may I do something for my own household? When will I ever benefit? You are just becoming rich, but when will I ever benefit? So God spoke to Jacob. So number one, Jacob was seeing a vision, but he didn't have an understanding. So the Lord spoke and told him, look up and see. What do you see? I see. And the Lord told Jacob, it's because I've seen all what Jacob has been doing to you. So when the voice of God speaks, it will always come to explain to you economic skills or strategies that are existing in your life, but you don't understand them. So it can be Jacob who was seeing this dream, but he didn't know what it meant. So the voice of God came to give him clarity or explanation, detailed elaboration, and it was a prosperity voice. So if the voice of God speaks to you, most likely you are going to prosper. Most likely you are going to excel economically. At no time will God find himself speaking to you and leave you struggling economically. So how did Jacob position himself in hearing the voice of God? Number one, you can look at verse 10. In the breeding season, I had a dream in which I looked up and saw that the male goats mating with the flock were streaked, speckled, or spotted. So the voice of God came because Jacob was seeing something, but he is not understanding. So the voice is there to explain or to elaborate or to interpret the dream. So key number one of the easiest way to hear the voice of God is through dreaming. Through dreaming. And I know you know what Job 3 says in verse 15. In verse 14, for God does speak, now one way, now another, though man may not perceive it. In a dream, in a vision of the night, when deep sleep falls on men as they slumber in their beds, he may speak in their ears and identify them with warnings. So one way to hear the voice of God, become a dreamer. I know there are people who struggle with dreams. Even you dream, you forget. You dream, you are not interested, and all that. You need even to build an altar of dreams. Remember, Jacob dreamt because he had built an altar. He took a stone, put it under his head, and he had a dream. So invest in a dreams and seeing visions. If you see a dream, you see images and symbols and figures. Now God can speak to you to interpret that. Number two, when the God spoke to him, he told him, I am that is Genesis 1:13. I am the God of Bethel, where you anointed a pillar. So God is telling Jacob, I am speaking to you in reference to the anointed pillar. Many believers don't have the anointed pillar. What is anointed pillar in you means what? Your heart. Okay? Transform your heart into anointed pillar, because the voice of God, that frequency is heard through the heart system. Number two, he says, I'm the God of the where you anointed the pillar, and where you made a vow to me. Where you made a vow to me. What was that vow? We go back in Genesis 28 and study that vow in verse 20. Genesis 28 verse 20. Then Jacob made a vow saying, if God will be with me and will watch over me on this journey I am taking, and will give me food to eat and a cloth to wear, so that I return safely to my father's house, then the Lord will be my God. And this stone that I have set up as a pillar will be God's house. And of all that you have given me, I will give you a tenth. So last but not least, that Jacob did to hear God clearly was instituting a vow. What was that vow? That vow was carrying three statements. Number one, that the Lord will be my God. Vow number two was, this pillar will become the house of God, Bethel. But vow number three is tithing. He said, I will give a tenth of everything. So you needed to know the secret of tithing.